Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar delivered by IBAN in the framework of the Eureka project nnoVest. My name is Chloe, and I am the Assistant Director of Secretariat here at IBAN. I will be moderating this webinar. Today, the experts will talk to you about how to plan the fundraising through an effective process. We will tackle the different steps that one has to go through when raising funds for his or her venture, but also through the expectations and characteristics of investors that you should be aware of while raising funds. To tackle this important topic, we have two outstanding speakers. First, Antal Karori, President of the Hungarian Business Angels Network, and secondly, we have Jako Salminen, who is Chairman of Finnish Business Angel Network, FIBAN. As we would like to offer you a highly interactive session, you will get the chance to ask questions to our two experts after they are done with their presentation. Therefore, we encourage you to write your questions down while the experts are speaking, so we do not waste any time afterwards. Before I give the floor to the speakers, I would like to kindly ask all participants the following. Please keep your webcam switched off to ensure a better quality of this webinar. Please mute your microphone, unmute it only when requested. Please do not share your screen. This webinar will be recorded and it will also be made available on the nnoVest website. Unmute yourself or use the chat to ask questions when we come to the Q&A part. This is what the Zoom platform should look like on your side. So as you can see on the bottom left of the screen, you have two buttons. One is to mute and unmute yourself. To all participants, except for the speakers, I will ask you to remain mute the whole time in order not to disturb the speakers. Same for the webcam, as I just said. This is to ensure a better quality of the recording and of the webinar. A bit more on the right, you can see the chat button right next to the share the screen. So the chat button where you can already ask your questions while the speakers are presenting. Do we have any questions for the Zoom platform? This is now the time for you to unmute yourself. For example, try the platform and ask the questions if you have any. So it seems like this is clear to everybody. I will then now mute everyone except for our first speaker. So Antal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That's great. Okay, so if you are ready, then off you go whenever you're ready. You have 20 minutes.
Okay. Hi everyone. I've been active both as a business angel and I also co-founded Traction Tribe, which was an early stage micro VC. So I have experience both as a private investor and also as a VC. So and I'm sharing my experiences with you today. Chloe, next slide, please. So this is just a quick rundown of what is lying ahead in the next 40 minutes. So I'm going to talk about what investors expect from you, how you should talk to them, what kind of investors are there, and how, in general, how this discussion goes, how to contact us, and how to present your company. And then Jako will take over, and he's going to go into more details how the negotiations work and what details you have to be aware of. And he's going to share a lot of good tips and hints. What can you bring over this this hurdle? And then obviously we're going to have the last 20 minutes is always probably, the most important part, answering your questions. So Chloe, next slide, please. So funnily enough, I don't think it comes as a surprise. Investors are looking for return, which sounds like a triviality, but in fact it has, investing in this extremely high risk asset class, investing into startups, it has serious consequences of how we think and what we expect. So maths is cruel. The thing is, 9 out of 10, depending on what statistics you believe in, 9 out of 10 startups fail, or they don't fail from an investor's point of view. And going by that maths, the result is that we are investing in startups that need at least 10, or they have the potential of 10 or 20 times returns, and that is really important to understand. It's also important to understand from an angel investor point of view. We're investing our children's money. So basically, you have to persuade us to invest in you rather than spend our money to our children. So this sounds like some additional pressure on you, but this is what you have to be aware of. So the consequences are, early stage ventures can fail for a number of reasons, many reasons. So we do not like surprises. Obviously, the first part of any journey, of a startup journey, includes a lot of experimentation, validation. So obviously, we are going to learn all the time, but that happens according to a strategy that we agree on. So in order to minimize risks, we want to control as many aspects of a venture as we can. And honesty and transparency, this should be self-explanatory, but let me share a story with you. Once I was talking to a solar panel cleaning service company, and they were telling me that they wanted to sell their service for €1 per square meter. And I Googled what the market price was, and I found 2 or 3 other providers who were selling their product for 30 cents. So less than 1/3 of what these guys were telling me. And that was the end of the discussion. I didn't care at the point if they didn't know the market or they just had some made up numbers. Trust went through the window in that second. So that was the end of the negotiations. Next slide, please, Corinne. It's important to understand of the roads lying ahead. If you go through the whole life cycle of a venture, normally we're talking about 7 to 10 years from the beginning to the IPO or exit or an exit to a strategic buyer. So what if you are doing things right, you are going to have a number of investors, and you are going to be diluted quite severely. But that means obviously having maybe like 20% of a company which is worth $1 billion. Obviously, it's it's not a bad day in the office when you go public. So what is also important to this chart has the consequences of anybody offering you taking your majority of your company, or trying to take substantial chunks of your company at the very beginning. Obviously, you have to run very fast in the opposite direction, because it's important to have room for the later rounds to come. But at this point, what obviously, if you're just about to start a business, I think it's very important to focus on the sort of left part of the chart, namely the valley of death. That sounds a bit harsh, probably, but the truth is that most startups don't survive this period, and cash is king. You have to produce traction as fast as you can. Next slide, please. So, who are the investors? Obviously, friends, family, and fools. That's a classic 3F. It's normally not smart money. It might be an owned. It might be your friends. It really depends on which country you're in. In the US, we hear 200,000 or 300,000 rounds. I mean, help from friends and family. This doesn't happen in my country, in Hungary. So it really depends on where you are. The so-called smart money starts with the business angels. I think there are, I think, more similarities between business angels and VCs than differences. We are looking at we have the same investment goals. In some way or the other, we are going through a filtering process. We pick one or two teams out of 100. So most of the maths is the same. However, the differences are business angels. We do spend, we have more time, and we do spend more time with the teams, and so we have more airtime for them. That's my experience anyway. So one of my companies that was funded by VC, I still keep talking to them a lot more than the VC. And obviously, VCs have their mandate. They have their investment agenda. Angels are obviously a lot more flexible, and probably a bit more emotional. So, but at the end of the day, we follow the same patterns as investors. Next slide, please. So, how do you get to talk to investors? Obviously, you have to pick the right one for you, and timing is important. You want to raise as less. It may sound counterintuitive, but you want to raise as little as possible. You don't want to get diluted, and more often than not, you will find that you will be able to raise when you feel you don't need to. So many founders have the feeling that actually I don't even need the investors, and that will be the point where investors will chase them. Reason is that considering the risky nature of the business. In order to produce traction, in order to invest, most of the time you need traction. In order to be investable, you will need proof, and that will be the moment when you think, well, I don't even need this, but yes, you need. If you have real growth potential, you will need the money in order to to grow fast enough. So it's important to know it's a hard job to raise funds. As I mentioned, the reality is that we invest into one or two projects out of 100 that we are talking to. So be prepared to get a lot of no's. You got, we say no most of the time, and it's it's nothing personal. There can be a number of reasons why we say no. It might be not might not fit our portfolio. Your project might be good, but we still need some time to work on your traction. There can be a number of reasons why we say no. So you have to be prepared to talk to a number of people. You're going to learn a lot on the way anyway. You're going to have feedback, and in order to do that, what you need to do is you have to dedicate at least one team member who does this full time. So it's hard. It's a hard road to hit. Next slide, please. So how you present your company? There will be three, at least. There will be a lot more, but three documents in this respect. You're going to have a one-pager, which is basically the this is the document that investors decide on whether they want to talk to you or not. It's very important to have a professional one-pager. You're going to have two variants of a pitch deck. So you're going to have one pitch deck, which is to send it to the investor. It's going to contain probably more text, more explanations, more data, and you're going to have a deck to present, which is probably going to have more. That will be more optimized for the format that you are actually there. So what you need to be aware of, you are talking to a humanoid. So it doesn't matter if you're talking to a VC or an angel. Stories sell. So you have to be able to sell your story in a way that that's easy to understand and interesting for that grabs the investor's attention. I mean, we are talking to literally hundreds and hundreds of companies a year, so it's not easy to stand out. So you want to be clear and you need to get to the point quickly. It's also important to understand, I hear this a lot, that it's impossible to present my project in 4 minutes. It sounds, indeed, it sounds like 4 minutes. Oh God, I don't have, how can I tell everything about my project? No, you don't have to tell everything about your project in 4 minutes. What you need to understand at each stage of negotiations, what you need to, your direct goal is to get to the next stage. So if you have 30 seconds, the classic elevator pitch, obviously you don't have time to explain everything. What you want to achieve is to arrange a coffee with the investor and take it to the next step. So that's how it goes. Next slide, please. So negotiations. Obviously, Jaco is going to talk about this more in detail. Basically, what it is all about is it's all about checks and balances. So shit happened on both ends. There were in the past 60 years of venture capital, there is a lot of accumulated knowledge about what can go wrong, and I think that there is altogether there is a knowledge about what works the best. So there are best practices, and you know, I think good investors work with templates that sort of they are the right. A good template strikes the right balance between control and freedom. Freedom for the entrepreneur. So obviously, you want to work with a lawyer, but and that's very important. But you need to understand the key terms yourself. I mean, there's no two. You have to understand this is crucial for the future of your company. So you need to understand the terminology. You have to understand the logic behind the contract that you are going to sign. So there is abundant literature on the topic. You might want to read Brad Feld's Venture Deals, for instance, a great book. And so be prepared, because this is going to be crucial for the future of your company. Next slide, please. So the two documents that you're going to see during those negotiations, the term sheet is basically, think about the concise version or the table of contents, if you wish, of the shareholder agreement. The shareholder agreement is the legally binding document, but in order to have the negotiations in an efficient way, the best practice is that you talk about the term sheet. You discuss the terms of a term sheet, and basically the shareholder agreement that comes afterwards shouldn't contain big surprises. Obviously, it's going to be much more detailed. It's going to it's going to go into details with respect to the actual terms, but the main the foundation of your agreement with the investor will be the term sheet. So that's all from me, and Jaakko, take it away.
Thank you so much, Antal. I will now mute you, and we go to Jaakko. Jaakko, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's perfect. So
very good.
Let's go to your slide. There you go. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. From Hungary to Finland. I'm a business angel. I've been doing business angel investments for more than 6 years now, and invested so far in 15 software companies. I actually was the chairman of Finnish Business Angel Network until year end. Now I'm doing later stage financing rounds for growth companies, 2 mil plus rounds, combining equity, investments from VCs and similar companies and loan instruments, etc., etc. But enough about me. Let's go to the actual business. Chloe? Next slide. Yep, there you go. Some of the terms that you might come across when you talk with investors are included here. I tried to include the most important ones, and the most important, obviously, is the pre-money valuation. It sounds like a very fancy term, but it's really the price of your company, how much your company is worth before the investment, and that's the way you should approach it. Really, it's not a kind of a theoretical number. but it is really the price of your company. I'll come back a little bit later onto how the valuation should be defined. It's an art, not a science, when you talk about startups and seed stage companies. The second one is ticket, and it's not a ticket to a concert or a movie, but it's the amount of money that's expected from a single investor. And the most common ticket sizes are typically multiples of 25 for some reason. 25K, 50K, 75K, 100K. Although obviously 10K, 20K, 30K are quite common as well. But that's the investment from a single investor in the investment round. And the round size is how much money you want in the single round. And it's always important to think about a round as a one deterministic process, because once you open the round, you can start taking investors into that round. And at some point, when you have enough money or enough investors in the round, then you close the round. And that's the money that really pays for the new shares in the emission. So keep in mind that you're creating new shares for your company. You're creating basically new divisions of your company, not selling the shares that already exist for the round. So the pre-money plus the investment is the post-money valuation. That's the other kind of valuation that we talk about. And the investor's share of the company is calculated from the post-money valuation, not the pre-money. So making it simple, if you have the pre-money valuation of 1 million euros and your round size is 200,000 euros, then the share of the round is not 20%, but it's less, because it's 200,000 euros divided by 1.2 million euros. And one thing to keep in mind is that subsidies and grants are not calculated in the investment round. So if you have a public grant or a subsidy, it's obviously very good money for you, but it's not in the investment round as such. Next slide, please. Right. I mentioned that valuation is more like an art than science or a math when it comes to startups. If you go to the library and look for valuation books, there's a whole bunch of them. But they all assume that it's an ongoing business, meaning that the company that the valuation can be calculated on needs to have some kind of business running for several years. In startups case, that's not the case. There's very little real data to really base the calculation of valuation on. Only projections, estimates, and big wishes. So the effect of this is that the valuation is mostly based on a market price. And that market price varies a little bit. So actually it varies quite a bit when you talk about Europe versus US or Europe versus Israel, for example. So looking at a similar company in US or a similar company in Israel and the valuation of that company, it does not really tell you a whole lot of what the valuation could be in Europe or vice versa, for that matter. Typically, the market price valuations, at least here in Finland, are roughly 1 million to 1.5 million euros for a company in the startup phase, meaning that the company has some kind of a beta product available, some first pilot customers signed up and trying out the product, but not much more. Maybe not even, probably not even revenue at all. Usually we start with the market price as a baseline valuation, meaning that if you have a really strong team, then we can add to the kind of market price baseline. Or if the team is lacking in resources, it will subtract from the market valuation. And this is really the principle that most methods of calculating the startup valuation are based on. Starting with the market price and then looking at the key things about the company: strength of the team, size and potential of the market, strength of intellectual property, existing contracts, and readiness of product or service, and some others as well. They can either subtract or add to the valuation if you're better or worse than the average. All right, next slide, please. So one of the questions that I've come across quite often is, should we do an equity round or a credit note? And the difference is that in an equity round or a straight equity round, it's sometimes called, investors pay you money right away and they get the shares right away. So it's like going to the shop where you give the clerk some money and you get the goods. Now with credit note, you give a kind of a loan, or you get, well, investor gives the kind of a loan and you get a kind of a loan. Transfer of ownership of shares is deferred. And typically it's deferred 12 months. And at the end of that 12 months, the credit note is usually converted to shares. Or in some extreme cases, it could be paid back with interest. And there is usually some kind of a discount in the credit note, and the interest can be quite high. Now, Europeans usually prefer equity rounds, European investors at least, because it's easier to do. And when you do an equity round, you know how much the thing you're buying will cost. Typically, in a credit note, the valuation is not defined precisely. There's some kind of a window or a roof of a valuation in the credit note. But with a straight equity round, the valuation is set right away. Sometimes, or actually quite often, US investors prefer credit notes. There's a rationale behind it, because doing an equity round in US is quite expensive. All the legal costs and all the other costs involved are quite a bit higher than with credit notes. And that's why they want to defer the costs as well. We usually prefer straight equity here in Europe. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, I mentioned already about this. The big challenge in credit notes valuation. This is really looking from the investor side of the table. Valuation of the company always should rise if all goes well. If it goes down, it's really bad, actually. But that's a whole different subject matter. And when you do a credit note now, you know that the valuation will be higher, or should be higher. You know, everything is all right in 12 months, and that's why we usually define a valuation cap plus a discount in share price. You should be aware that it's common. It's not unusual practice. Next slide, please. Okay, there's a whole bunch of things that you should be on the lookout for when you discuss or negotiate the investment with investors. And these are actually some of the things that some of the reasons why I usually recommend that there's a lawyer or somebody more experienced helping you during the negotiations. The liquidation preference is kind of a tricky thing, because one times liquidation preference is normal and it's generally accepted, but higher is usually not a good thing. I should say it's unusual, really. A liquidation preference means that in an exit case where somebody wants to buy your company, you do a nice exit. The investor who has the liquidation preference will get their money back first before anybody else gets any money. Now, there are some variations in the liquidation preference, obviously, but these are typically the kind of terms that VCs use. It's very common for VCs to have the liquidation preference in their agreements. Not so with angels usually. The other thing is the good lever, bad lever, drag along, tag along. terms where they define what happens to founder shares in situations such as founder being fired from the company, or founder doing something bad and breaking the agreement, or a founder or somebody wants to sell their shares, and the others think, oh, this guy's selling his shares, I want to sell my shares too. That kind of situations. One of the things that you should be aware is that there is always some kind of a work obligation in the agreement with investors. Now, investors will want to have your full attention, your full work effort in the company to make sure that it grows as it should be. And one of the ways to do this is usually to build some kind of terms where if you leave within, say, 3 years or 4 years from the investment, you will lose some of your shares, most likely. You should be aware of this. It's common as well. And the term that's used here is vesting or reverse vesting. It just means that the longer you work for the company, the smaller the share that the smaller the portion of the shares that you will lose if you leave before 3 or 4 years. Sounds very complex, but it's in practice it's kind of easy. Next slide, please. Okay. In the end, I wanted to give some hints and tips and good practices and useful tools. Investors like to be kept up to speed, especially on how you're progressing versus goals. So if you have investors on board, I think it's a really good idea to have monthly or at least a quarterly investor newsletter. Just, 1 page or half a page, where you're going, how your business is progressing, how the numbers look, and send it over to all shareholders of the company. That's good practice. And as was mentioned earlier, investors have put a lot of faith in you, which means that they really expect you to be honest, timely, and transparent. Communications and everything you do with them. Okay, that's from this slide. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this is a practice that I've noticed in some companies that is very, very useful in many situations, not just with investors. Very early on, set up a folder structure for all agreements, financial plans and tools, and sales pipelines, and all the documents of the company. Make it somehow logical in its structure. It will help you a lot, or you personally, and investors will love it. Because we like to do a thing called DD, or due diligence, before we make the investment. And it's a lot easier for us, and especially you. You can just point out to the investors, okay, here are all the agreements. Do your DD and have a look at these. Highly recommend it. And you can share it on a Dropbox or a Box.com or something similar. Next one, please. Okay. Now, when you present your case to potential investors, don't overdo the material. I think the Antal's tips earlier on were very good. I think a compact pitch deck is enough. Something like 10 slides, maybe. Usually I recommend companies to do 1 set of slides, but if you have the time and energy, you can do 2 sets. It's even better. But it'll save you a little bit of effort if you do just 1. You can pitch yourself and you can send over to investors. That is enough. Just be concise and get straight to the point. As Antal mentioned earlier, we look at hundreds of cases every year. We don't have the patience to go through 50 slides or even 30. The good file archives I mentioned earlier it makes everybody's life a lot easier. It's not just nitpicking. It's very, very practical. And it always helps to have somebody experienced help you with actual negotiations and otherwise as well. So try to get good advisors as early as possible to your company to help. And obviously, when you get good business angels investing in your company, they will be those advisors helping you. Next one, please. To summarize, when you want to get funded, be prepared to talk to a lot of investors, a lot of us. Because the fact of the matter is that most of us will say no, but you should not let that discourage you. And it shouldn't also keep you from contacting other investors. We're always interested in hearing about new companies and new investment cases, even if we say no to 99 or 98% of the cases. One of the ways of thinking about how you should formulate your message to investors, or maybe it's just me, it's to think of giving a speech to ADD teens, attention deficit disorder teens, who have no span of attention, who lose their interest in, after 2 sentences. That might help you keep the message as concise as it needs to be. 4 minutes is a long time. So we have our pitching events, and there's usually 12 to 15 companies pitching. I mean, if you are the 15th company and all investors have been listening for 1.5 hours of pitches, well, you should be very clear in your message. Don't try to do everything yourself, obviously, and keep your investors informed. And keep in mind that, in particular, business angels, but also other investors are ready to help you not to waste any money as well. All right. Shall we get to Q&A?
Yes, thank you very much, Jaakko, for the presentation. Do we have any questions from the participants? So if we do, I will invite you to unmute you and ask your questions, or to simply type them in the chat. I think we have a lot of shy entrepreneurs.
Or some very confused entrepreneurs.
Or some very confused ones, yeah, that didn't understand the terminology. So, yes, hello?
Hello, this is Fernando Martin. I'm very pleased to participate in this event. I really appreciate the speakers is to share their approaches and their insights. It's very helpful for us. I would like just to make a very specific question. It's very, obvious and crucial just to approach the proper investor in order to align the value proposition, the opportunity of investment with their investment philosophy, criteria, or even interest. Sometimes for us, it's not easy just to make this type of screening. Overall, when dealing with foreign investors, let me give you an example. Next week I'll be in London. I'm based in Spain. Next week I'll be in London, attending at the fair, very focused in our sector. I know that it may be a bit of a rush, but I'll be more than pleased just to approach some investors. It is not easy for me, for us, for our team, just to identify the appropriate or the eventual appropriate investors according to their priorities. Could you give us some suggestion on how to make this type of investor market analysis in order to better select the ones to approach?
You want to go on, Tal?
It's as you will. Okay, right. Thank you for the question, Fernando. that's really vital. It's good for both sides if you are actually trying to talk to the right investors. So I really like your many entrepreneurs don't understand this, and I do get a lot of sort of random inquiries. But in many cases, step number one, Google is your friend. You can find out. I know it's hard research, but you can actually, most investors give their investment profile on their websites, and if you are Googling whatever space you are in, and you say, hey, I'm looking for AI investors, in all likelihood, you're gonna see that the first 20 hits will have some relevance. Also, there are databases of investors, and you can screen through them, and also one way to go about this, maybe a third method, is if you know competitors or or at least companies that are in a similar space, and you're looking at them, what VCs/angels invested into them, and then try to pitch those.
Yeah, cool. Very interesting. Would it be also, how to say, sensitive just to contact some of these eventual investors through particular networks, such as the European Business Angel Network, or this type of associations?
Yeah, I think the local associations are the best route, really. If you have local investors in Spain already engaged in your company, and they would be the best people to introduce you to other angels. I mean, angels in other countries. We usually would like to have somebody local helping us in our investment. I've done some cross-border investing, and one of the prerequisites is always that there is somebody local.
All right.
One database that you should really look at is Crunchbase.
Right.
Not all investors invest their investments there, but you should be able to get a fairly good picture of what kind of cases each investor is interested in if you go there.
Thanks so much for your suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Fernando, for your question. I will mute you now yeah, that's fine, thank you. We have a question in the chat from Emilien Watley, who is asking if there is a minimum amount of money to request to business angels. So what is the amount that one company would usually ask from a business angel?
Maybe I'll go first. We've done quite a bit of statistics here in Finland about that, and the typical round size is between 200 and 400,000 euros for a startup. Now, obviously, that varies a lot. It can be smaller, it can be a bit higher. That's kind of the sensible range. It shouldn't be too little, because it's not very credible to ask for 50,000 euros because we know that money is going to run out very quickly, and then you're back asking for more. And the expectation is that the money should last 12 to 18 months in your plan, not a lot less and not a lot more.
Okay, thank you, Jaakko. Antal, you don't want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, the actual numbers vary from country to country. The European average is 180,000. So Finland is probably a bit more expensive. In Hungary, you will see around 100 to 200,000 euros, and the individual participation of the angels is in many rounds, angels have a contribution of 10, 20,000 euros as less as that. So that means that in a good round, in a good syndicated round, which you will prefer, you want more people, more networks, more knowledge around you. In line with what Jaco said before, you want to have good advisors around you. That improves credibility and so on. So, what happens is that most rounds come from more than one angel.
Okay.
Yeah, the average investment from one angel in one round is roughly 20,000 euros here in Finland.
Yes, that's also the European average. Yes, makes sense. I mean, we want to build a portfolio. So, surveys say that portfolios beyond 20 investments start to make sense from in terms of risk, so in order to build a substantial portfolio, you don't want to go wide and put all your money in one team, obviously.
Okay, thank you very much for this answer. We have another question from Grano, who is asking if you could tell a bit more about investors who basically only invest, but who are not able or willing to help in any other ways or be more involved in the development of the startup. So they just really bring in the money. Can you please elaborate a bit more about this?
We were talking about the friends, family, and fools rounds. So that's quite often that you have a friend or a relative who says, "Okay, I believe you, and I think you're gonna make it great and all," and they give you the money. But other than that, they unable to help. Also, I mean, here in Hungary, there is a state, a huge program run by the state, and they are sort of honest about that they are not they provide not smart money in the sense that they just run the show in terms of the whole machinery of negotiations and contracts and so on, but they work with mentors from the country. So they have sort of a mentorship program. Sort of the smart part of the investment comes from a mentorship program. So I'm not sure if it's how typical this format is in other countries, but this is one example for a sort of a kind of a silent partner, although it's not completely silent. But in all likelihood, also if you have larger angel round, then what tends to happen is that there is a lead investor, and some of the angels will not be as active in helping that particular company as others. So that happens if you have a larger angel round. Not everybody will be as active, as say the few that are really focusing on that company.
Okay, thank you. Jakob, do you want to add anything to this? Maybe a few words about, let's call them pure investors?
Well, the reply from Antal covers it pretty well. Maybe one detail to add is the engagement of a single angel tends to vary over time. I could be very active in a company in the beginning when it's really trying to get off the ground and getting new customers in a foreign country. country or something like that. But once it's gotten up to speed a bit better, I might become a lot less active or even completely passive.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the entrepreneurs? So I see no more in the chat, but maybe someone wants to unmute himself or herself to ask a question. Nope. Seems like this is it. Okay. So I will then conclude this webinar, but just before I do so, I would like to quickly go through the next activities that we have coming up with nnoVest. So you can see here the webinars that were delivered by IBAN, were or are delivered by IBAN. So the first two were delivered already and are available online on the website. Well, the second one is the one of today, but it will be available from tomorrow onwards. The third one coming up is about communication to investors, and it includes the part of presentations and negotiations. It will be on next week, so the 14th of March at 11 a.m. with another two outstanding speakers. With our partner for this program, EBN, we have another webinar coming up in 2 days. So on Friday, 10th of March at 11 on building your investment ready business plan and value proposition. So I would also strongly suggest that you attend this webinar with EBN. Their first webinar on sales and business development is also available on the website for the ones who would like to watch it. The venture academies. So going back to what Antal and Jaakko said during this webinar, how important it was to have a pitch that was prepared and that goes straight to the point. We have these academies that are preparing you basically to pitch to investors. These are the three investment academies. So these three will take place in Dresden on 16th of March, so next week, in Lisbon on 27th of March, and in Ljubljana on 6th of April. For Dresden, the applications are closed already, but it's not too late for you to apply to Lisbon and Ljubljana. So during this investment academies, you will get the chance to be intensively coached on how to improve your pitch, how to improve your investment readiness. So that should help you a lot in order to approach investors. You will also get more chances to be selected to come to the Venture Forum of nnoVest in Barcelona in May. There is also a business academy organized again by our partner EBN that will take place in Lund, Sweden on 29th of March. For this, the content is a bit more business oriented and all the details are available on the website as well. This is another service we offer via nnoVest. So this is a company profile evaluation. So when you registered online for the program, there is a panel of experts that will rate your company profile and presentation based on 6 criteria that you can see here on this page, and you can compare how you're doing with the 6 criteria compared to your peers. So you can see on the right part of the screen that you will have a little chart showing basically how well you do in the various criteria. This online profile is of extreme importance because this is based on that you will be selected to have this mentoring, this online mentoring. So 35 companies will be selected to have this intense mentoring sessions, online or on-site, depending on the availabilities, focusing on things that basically you want to talk about. So this is on the value proposition, on the investment readiness, on the business model, anything that basically you feel your venture is in need of, well, you can focus 4 hours of mentoring with a dedicated coach. And again, the profile online will be the base to select you to join us in Barcelona on May 18th, 19th for the Venture Forum, which is the flagship event of nnoVest. So 30 companies will present. They will be focusing on ICT, life sciences, and clean tech, and with more than 30 international investors to come and listen to your pitches. There will also be discussion panels on industry and technology trends, and some pre-arranged one-to-one meetings. And to make the competition a bit more friendly, obviously, we will also award some companies. This is the website of nnoVest, so I invite you to go check it. It's a new website for this year, so it's quite user-friendly. You can see all the activities on the left tab, so the webinars, the coaching academy, the one-to-one mentoring I just mentioned. This is also where you apply for the program and for the events. This is also where you registered for the upcoming webinars and where you can find basically all the information about the project. So that is all for me. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I would like to really warmly thank again our two speakers for joining us today and deliver this quality presentation based on their expertise. I will welcome you next week on the 14th for the last webinar delivered by IBAN on communication with investors. If you haven't registered yet, don't forget to do so via the website. And that is all for me. I wish you a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.